following God isn't easy. And if you're doing anything right, if you're doing anything good, it's going to be difficult, because if it wasn't, everyone would be doing it. So let's not give people the wrong idea of following God, that it's this red carpet ride. It's going to take a lot. It's going to take a lot of no's. It's going to take a lot of doing things that you don't want to do. It's going to take a lot of going back and, man, I used to cut corners in this area, but I can't anymore. But I think to encourage people is that we're all working towards something, and that the reward that we reap in heaven, it will be worth it.
Ready, set, go. We ready?
Yeah, we're ready.
Time? Talk. Someone talk to us. Time? All right. Ladies and gentlemen, we're so privileged to have you a part of our world. Welcome back to Podcast for the People. When I went to Bible school, there was a guy named Buddy Harrison, or Buddy Bell, excuse me. He was our teacher, and he'd walk into class every day, and he'd say, "Stand up, students. This is the day. This is the day that the Lord has made." And everyone start clapping. This is the day. This is the day the Lord has made, and we're so glad to have you with my co-host, pilot, team member, the great Talon. Welcome, Talon. How are you today?
Good.
Looking good, like you should.
Thank you. Yeah, it's good to be back. We love this. We prioritize this, huh?
We do.
This is special to our heart.
We do it.
If you are tuning in, thank you for checking us out. If you're new here, Podcast for the People started a couple years ago. Just, my dad and I, we've done a lot together. We've done life together. We've done ministry together. And now we're doing a podcast together. And the whole goal is just to point people to Jesus, talk about things that matter, talk about things in the Bible, and just walk away being inspired to know more about him. So
Podcast for the People is here for you.
Amen.
So I want to just start with that really sick hat. So it's amazing. It's become my favorite hat. And the only reason I didn't wear it today is because I thought you would wear it. So I let you have the...
I actually had that thought too. I was like, I feel like we're both going to show up.
But that's such a cool trucker hat. Tell us about it, what it's about, what's going on with it.
Yeah, well, shout out to Caleb. He designed it. So Caleb behind the camera.
KP!
He went and go on it. But it's for my band, ISLY. We did a little worship night the other night at a little coffee shop in town called The Boat, and we're like, we got to have something for the people. We got to have something that they could walk away with. And we made a hat, we made a shirt, and a lot of people like it. So
were Mom and I the first ones to get the hat?
I think you were. Yeah, you actually were.
We snagged 2 of those bad boys.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, I love wearing it. It's my favorite hat. Dylan, do you have a hat? Dylan does. Caleb, do you have a hat?
No.
We got to hook up Caleb with a hat.
Oh, yeah. We
got to sew into Caleb's life.
We definitely got to sew. Do a sew.
And then you guys too, it was really cool. Provident invited you guys out for a week in Nashville, Tennessee.
Yeah.
How was that?
Man, it was...
Who's Provident to the...
Yeah, they're just a record label under Sony Music. It's their Christian, I think like one of their top Christian labels. So it was fun. It was good. It was a lot. We worked a lot. It wasn't necessarily all leisure. It was more work in the mornings, songwriting in the studio with our people. And then we had a little showcase, which, if for people that don't know what it is, it's basically you just play your music in front of them, their team live, and they ask questions, and it's just a really cool opportunity.
Yeah, so you and the boys played before their executive team. It's a big deal.
The president of the whole thing was in there, and she was
awesome.
very kind to be there, but it's crazy.
So cool.
Surreal. Yeah.
Love it.
Yes, sir.
We're feeling good.
We're back, though. We had a busy 2 weeks, but we're back and we're ready to talk about.
So we have a prevailing thought and idea today, a big thought.
Yep.
And it's just the whole thing that I think everybody is fighting and maybe feeling fatigue, challenge, opposition. Everyone's just feeling like, man, there's some hard things that we're all walking through. We want to just kind of encourage and resource your lives with this beautiful thought, Galatians 6, verse 9. And I'll just read it from the text, and we'll talk about it today. And it says, "And let us not grow weary while doing good, for in due season we shall reap if we don't lose heart." And it just seems like everyone's walking through stuff, and the option and the opportunity to grow weary and to lose heart is more prevalent and more available now than ever. And we just want to come really loud, really big, and really strong and say, yeah, we feel it. We all do. We all feel the fatigue. We all feel the challenge. We all feel like, man, what's going on? This is good, but that's challenging. But we cannot, in God, we cannot grow weary, and we can't lose heart in all of that. So don't lose heart. This is the word of the Lord for you.
Yeah. And I like that he puts that as a personal responsibility for us, meaning that nobody else can do that for you. God can't even do that for you. It's something that us as believers, us as humans, us as individuals, he is commanding us. He is highly suggesting to us, you can't afford to grow weary. And I like that he says that it's right before the harvest. I think most of us, we give up right before the breakthrough.
It's always too soon to quit.
Amen. And I think that there's some of us out here that, man, we have just fallen short of the blessing, fallen short of provision, fallen short of just so many different things because we've given into the weariness of our soul, the weariness of our, even just our physical bodies. This isn't just some spiritual thing. I think it's on all accounts. We tend to grow weary. Like try not sleeping for a couple days. You're going to get really tired. You're going to grow really tired. Try running a long time. Your legs are going to grow tired, right? Try not communicating with your spouse about something that bothered you. You're going to grow weary over time. And I don't know, there's so many different angles that we could take this and dissect and uncover, but let's just start with that. Don't grow weary. How do we not grow weary? Or let's flip it. How do you think we grow weary?
Well, I want to just make this very plain and very clear. And we are believers. We are optimistic. We are people of faith. We are people of hope. Hope deferred makes the heart sick, Proverbs says. Jesus were born again through a living hope. 1 Peter 1:3 says so. Hope, those things are all powerful and real. But I think we got to know and state this. Let's state the obvious and state the elephant in the room. We are living in very difficult days. And that's not being negative, or that's not being like a doom and gloom preacher. It just is. Yep. The hour we're in is difficult. And the Bible says it. And if you need chapter and verse, 2 Timothy 3:1 says, in the last days will come difficult days. So we're living in extremely difficult days. There's not one person I know that isn't going through like, man, perplexing things, challenging things. I'm hearing people getting health reports that are just the most bizarre things over and over and over. So we got to just, as young, if we're speaking on our left, you're right, to young Caleb's generation, speaking to your guys' mid-level generation, to everyone in every generation, man, it's a difficulty in the hour. There's a stress, there's a challenge. It seems that since COVID, there's just a dark cloud.
Almost like a haze.
A haze.
Yeah. Like a fog. Like
it's a fog.
Have you ever found yourself like, man, I'm just in a little bit of a fog,
We've just lost some stuff. What's up? What's going on? Just God's good. He doesn't change. But so, I guess then I say that like prophetically, we just need to be fully aware of that. So how do we? If I'm not caught, if I have spiritual understanding, I can Because if not, you're like, what's up with me? You question everything. What's going on? But if I know prophetically that the Spirit of God has told us that in these last days there will be difficult challenges, it'll get harder. Okay, stay the course. Don't trip out. Stay the ground. So I think that's one thing. I think we need to have biblical understanding that tells us a foreshadowing of things to come so that we can stay anchored to it. But I think it's neat that we can just let us not grow weary. So you don't come to the point of quitting overnight. It's a slow, gradual process by which the enemy, life, circumstances, and disappointment erode little by little erode you away. So it's about growing there. So you have to take a fair assessment and calculation. Am I growing healthy? Am I growing stronger? Am I growing weary? And that's the key to navigating that. We grow weary just like we grow stronger. So what are some fundamentals of growing weary? Well, I just can't grow weary. In Daniel 7, it talks about the Antichrist spirit, how that in the last days he will wear out the saints. And the Hebrew word to that, I taught this years ago, is blah, B-L-A. The spirit of the age will want to make everything blah. What's blah? No more luster, no more fun. It's just blasé. It's boring.
Yeah.
He will want to wear out and wear down the saints by blah. So that's a huge component that in these days there's going to want to just be this like wearing out, wearing down. It just doesn't stop to make us just like numb. I don't care anymore. I'm over it. Does it really matter? You know, probably a lot of people at the sound of our voice, let's be honest. You haven't seen your prayers fully answered. You haven't seen the fullness of the promise. And you're wondering, where's God? Does it really matter? I mean, does it really matter if I read my Bible? Does it really matter if I stay plugged into the church? I mean, because that enemy is trying to just make it blah.
Yeah.
Does it really matter that I keep fighting? Does it really matter that I stay plugged in? And so we have to navigate that, because that's going to want to grow us to a place of being weary and lose heart and all that.
Yeah. And what comes with growth is time. And I think that the enemy is not an impatient foe. And much like, you think of predators, and there's different hunting styles, and the cheetah, it's the fastest animal on earth, and it'll outrun you every time.
75 plus miles an hour, huh?
Crazy. You think of some animals, they have certain attributes they can see in the dark. That's how they get you. But I think of wolves, and wolves have a particular hunting style where they may not be the fastest, they may not be the strongest, but they have a lot of endurance, and they will run with an animal for hours on end, to the point where the animal that they're chasing will physically fall over.
Wow.
And basically surrender to the wolves. And I think that, of course, we don't lead from fear, but we have to be aware of the enemy's devices. And we have to understand that, like you said, the temptation doesn't come overnight. The door to quit doesn't happen overnight. The enemy is so patient. He will run with you as long as you will go, and he will wait for you to sit down and to roll over for that. And I think that it all just goes back to endurance. I mean, why does Paul always talk about it's a race? Run the race set before you and finish strong. And not to go back into the previous episodes that we've talked about, but I think that the encouraging thing about something that grows is that if you spot it before it's too big, it'll be a lot less messy. It'll be a lot more effective, right? If you spot let's say a little weed in your garden, if you get it before it does any damage to anything else, then you're okay and you're aware of it. But it's the things that we let grow, the things that we don't check in on, the things that we don't have a perspective on, that we kind of just close the door on a lot of things. And then a couple months when we open that door and it's so much bigger than it needed to be.
Yeah.
So I think that how to be effective on not growing weary is firstly checking in and being self-aware of things in your life that will cause harm to you over time if not dealt with. And that only comes from being completely self-aware of, like, I can't afford to let that thought linger, because if that lingers too long, it could affect my perspective on something. And then what do you know? You fall out of that.
That's right.
You choose that.
That's right.
Or even just physically, I know I can't, if something is happening the next day, I know, and I'm so self-aware of my routine, that I need to be in bed by this time, to not look at my phone at this time, so that I can give my best to the next. And I don't know, have you experienced that? Are there some things in your life where like, man, thank you, Lord, for helping me understand myself and what works for me? Are there little things in your life where it's the little thing, the little foxes that spoil like the harvest? What are those moments for you?
100%. And you're hitting on something that is so invaluable, is self-awareness of ourselves. So learning me, my rhythms, my strengths, my abilities, that when I get tired, I'm weak, having to manage myself right and well. It's so important, and making those little adjustments is so crucial. Because it says that in Song of Solomon, that if you catch these little foxes, the harvest will come. So there are these little things that want to interrupt and fester into us. So yes, there's just a lot of practical things that are just so crucial to our lives. For me, like even working out and having a good sweat is a big deal. Yeah. It releases a lot of stress, releases a lot, that's a big deal. Rest, eating, all those things, knowing your gauge, knowing what you need to be at your strength, knowing what to say no to, a practical wherewithal of all of that is so crucial.
Yeah.
And I have two talent, and this may not seem very spiritual, but I stand by this. I've just come to the conclusion, walking with God, trying to do good, trying to be who He's called you to be, build something great, do something beyond yourself, do the right thing, is upstream, and it's gonna come with challenges of getting weary. It just is.
Yeah.
It almost is like it's almost like the confirmation that we're moving in the right direction. I just kind of come to that conclusion. Like it just comes with the territory in your marriage. You're raising a family, build a church. You're gonna follow God. There's gonna be. There's gonna be an assistant telling you to quit, give up. It's not work. It's just gonna come with it. So you just kind of like, to me, like. With that said, I'm resolved. I'm steadfast. I'm immovable. I know that. I've heard that long enough. I can't give place to that. I know that I know that I know. And so you just kind of, to me, like,
yeah,
it comes with the territory.
Yeah. And just to help people understand that following God isn't easy. And if you're doing anything right, if you're doing anything good, it's going to be difficult. Because if it wasn't, everyone would be doing it. So let's not give people the wrong idea of following God, that it's this red carpet ride. It's going to take a lot. It's going to take a lot of no's. It's going to take a lot of doing things that you don't want to do. It's going to take a lot of going back and, man, I used to cut corners in this area, but I can't anymore. But I think to encourage people is that we're all working towards something.
Yeah.
And that the reward that we reap in heaven, it will be worth it. Because that's what I think is so important of having an eternal mindset, is knowing that this isn't the end all be all.
Yeah.
My life is not the 70 or 80 or, hopefully some of us live to 100. The 100 years that we have here on earth, we make decisions, we make informed decisions because we are fully aware that there is the next, there is the other side. And for people, maybe they don't even see that now. Like, what's the point, man? My life sucks already. I'm just going to die. What's the point of any of this? And it's like, no, let's extend. Let's go into overtime a little bit here. Don't give up yet, right? There's still an overtime to this thing called life. And I don't know. I want to be the type of person that reaps a harvest here on earth, but also in heaven.
And I've noticed in God, whatever it looks like, Ed, that sometimes at our lowest moments, at our breaking moments, they're not like, He's okay with that because He's doing an eternal work, and there's these light afflictions, but there's something greater. So I've realized when I kind of come to the end of myself in seasons and moments, He will do something enough to keep you engaged and to show you He's with you, and He'll show you like a God wink. He's just that faithful. He's that good. He'll always bring something along the pathway to, if it's a person, if it's a testimony, if it's just to keep you engaged. And God is so faithful to, when you feel a breakdown, when you feel it's over, when you feel like there's nothing to it, he will bring you. Think about Peter, man. They're fishing all night and caught nothing. And that's a lot what it is with God. It is eternal. It is obedience. It is, what does Psalm 37 say? The evildoers are prospering and you're not. There's a lot of mystery with God. But they're done. And then Jesus walks in and he just basically says, hey, cast your net on this side. And right at the moment of their breaking point, they catch a harvest. And it like in our text, it says, don't get weary while doing good, for in due season you will reap. God is faithful to bring it to pass. And I've just seen that in my life over and over. When I'm down to nothing, when I think it's done, something, if it's a text message, if it's God will let you know it matters. I see it. Stay in there, and he'll bring perspective. So that's the beauty. When you hit a pothole in your car and you popped your tire and you pull up on the side of the road, because that's oftentimes what it can feel like, God will send. For Elisha, it was a raven to feed him. It was a widow. He will send things in our world to say, don't get weary. Don't give up. It's not over yet. There's another chapter. Turn the page and stay in there, because there is a harvest. There is breakthrough. There is reward. I am good. He's not unjust to forget our labor of love. He will make a way to our lives. And that's the one thing I love about God. I'm just seeing that over and over. When I'm just at the place going, a dead end, a roadblock, he just somehow, some way will do something that just gives you a glimmer of hope and keeps you engaged.
Amen.
In whatever.
Yeah. And I like that you said hope, because that kind of ties into the verse that I wanted to read, which is Isaiah 40:31. It says, but those who hope in the Lord will renew their strength. They will soar on wings like eagles. They will run and not grow weary. They will walk and they will not faint. And we have to learn to anchor our hope in the Lord.
Yeah.
And I don't know about you, but like I've been here long enough to know that my hope placed in anything but him has a possibility to let me down.
So good.
But the reality is that once we come alive to the knowledge of Jesus and who he is and what he does, and man, he's got a great track record, right? He is somebody who you could unfathomably put your trust in, somebody who you can surrender every part of you to and know that he'll always leave you better than he found you. And part of it is just maybe your hope is placed in things
so good
that they're not supposed to be placed in. And we're not aware that if we just readjust some things, right? Like going through your finances, maybe if we just put some finances out of that and plug that in here, and maybe it'll be a lot easier. It's like reorganizing where we put our hope so that we could reap a better reward of that. And the reality is that if you place your hope in God, he'll never let you down.
Yeah.
And that's like, if you start investing your hope into him, it's hard to grow weary.
Right. It's good. I think when it's beautiful, it's so good, it's so true. We have probably misaligned hope, and we're so results driven that it's just hard with God, because God speaks God, but he operates in seed time and harvest. It says as long as the earth remains, there's those things. I think too, and let's be clear on this, as believers, biblical believers who love Jesus in full pursuit of his kingdom and his will and his plan, endeavoring to live by the will of God on the earth. We sign up for faithfulness. The name of the game is faithfulness. So at the end of the day, like my success margin is day in and day out. Did I stay the course of being faithful? So the fact that you're remaining faithful in God's mind and eyes, well done, good and faithful servant, enter into the so it is faithfulness. And faithfulness is not like sexy, right? It's not like, but being faithful is it. And I think that when you realize, like, don't grow weary, because like it is a day in and day out doing the right thing, a day in and day out doing what's before you, a day in and day out, remaining. That's That's the beauty about this whole thing. In fact, like the whole idea of even like abiding in God, which, you know, I just taught on this a couple weeks ago, like 15 times in 1 John 5, it uses the word abide. And we can go to John 15, if you abide in me, I abide in you. There's this whole flow of the branch and the vine and staying connected. But like if we wanted to make the word abide in more of just, I don't want to say like in more of just a common term, you know what it means, Talon? Continue. You know what God's saying to you? Just don't stop. Continue. It's actually a continuation of what started. And so many believers stop. For what? Because it got hard? For what? Because you're walking through testing? For what? Because you don't feel. But that's the whole thing of following Jesus. If you continue in my word, you're my disciple. That's what he said. If you abide, it means to continue. So while we're on planet Earth, we just keep continuing and moving forward and moving in that. And not to get so, top heavy biblically speaking, but if you think about this in 1 Corinthians 4:1, it says, this is the one requirement, following God. Now, this is cool. This is the requirement. It doesn't say Bible memorization, which that's so important. It doesn't say attendance in church, which is so important. It doesn't say, these many people you see saved. It doesn't say this is your 401k. It doesn't say you have this in your savings. It doesn't say any of those things, but there's one New Testament requirement. It is required that one be found faithful. So I have to just say at the end of my day, I'm disappointed. At the end of the day, I thought it would be different by now. At the end of the day, I thought I would have more breaks by now. At the end of the day, I didn't think this would take this long, right? I mean, the list for me is long. At the end of the day, I thought my kids would turn around by now. At the end of the day, I thought God was going to answer that prayer that way. At the end of the day, I didn't think that person was going to die. At the end of the day, I didn't, right? Yeah. I mean, that list is big. Now, the flip side of that is important, and I want to say something to help balance that. But what's required of Matthew Pollock? What's required of Talon Pollock? What's required? Faithfulness. That's it. That's the flow. And I think one other thing that can really help us not grow weary is if you understand in your life and take an assessment, it's more about what is than what's not. Because always what is greater than what's not. And where the enemy wants to get you looking to grow weary is what's not. But you have to focus on what is good. Count it, what is happening, what do I have? And that what is should always take precedence over what's not.
And that's why it's important to ask the Lord to renew your mind, because I feel like we do see the bad before the good. Why do we watch the news? What do we watch the news if all it did was celebrate all the good in the world? No. Right. We watch the news because we are intrigued on negativity. And if we're not careful, we could wake up and already be looking for everything bad and bypass the good.
Yeah.
And the good is right here, but you're so tunnel vision you can't even see it.
It's true.
And that's why it's important to start your day with thankfulness. Even sometimes in worship, like before we start worshiping, I just like to ask the congregation to, before we praise and worship, let's just think of all the things that we're thankful of. Man, we woke up today. That's it. As long as you are still alive, you can start with that. Man, I have gas in my car, so I can go to the job that I hate to work at, but at least I can get there, right? Man, I have a relationship with my family. Some people don't even have that. Some people don't even have a family. And that is a part of fueling your hope. That's a part of fueling your morale. Because if you're the type of person that only sees the bad, that's going to rub off on you. And also to kind of segue into like what you're talking about like abiding and stuff like that, I think that it's super important to really prioritize our nearness and our closeness to the Lord. And especially for those in ministry, I think that there's nothing that will cause you to burn out or grow weary than doing something for God but without him. Like if the extent of your relationship with the Lord is just doing stuff for him, then that's such a miserable relationship. Like that's such a tiring way to live for the Lord. all of that should be coming from, we hear the words like overflow, and it's so true. Like what we put into this is the extent of what can come out of us.
Mm-hmm.
And how does that happen? That only comes from spending intimate time with the Lord,
Mm-hmm.
and praying with him, and like you said, abiding in his presence. And I think that I've experienced that a lot in my life, where seasons being in ministry, being in church, being, I'm here every Sunday, serving, doing something, and I've often found the seasons where I felt the most burnt out, or the most weary, or the most tired, because the definition of weary is just somebody who's tired. There's a lack of energy. There's a sluggishness to them. The seasons where I felt that the strongest were the seasons where I didn't prioritize my personal walk with the Lord the most. And you can even see it in volunteers. Like there's a clear indication that somebody is maybe not as close with the Lord, because they're so easy to burn out. Mm-hmm. And it's this very seasonal thing. They're starting so strong. Yeah. A couple months go by, they're gone. Yeah. And for whatever, I'm back, I'm ready. And then it's just like another couple months, they're gone. And there's this like pie chart of like ups and downs, and not saying that our walk with the Lord is a continuous straight line up to him. There's going to be ups and downs. There's going to be hard seasons. But I think that you said every day you have to choose to remain faithful. Every day you have to wake up with a mission to be in his presence, to abide with him. Because if not, you're going to look like that,
I think we, in some ways too, Talon, have maybe misrepresented faith. And we've almost made faith in God seem like, because God is just a genie and God is here to just serve and attend to our areas of faith, that we have misrepresented faith in the sense that faith is really, the essence of faith is probably spelled patience. Meaning, I have faith to get through. I have faith to sustain me, but it's don't become sluggish, that by faith and patience we inherit the promise. And I think what almost needs to be taught more than faith is patience. Yeah. God takes his time. Things take time. Anything good takes time. It doesn't happen overnight. And, faith is the backbone. It's our trust in God. Faith is the, believing and in hope and the evidence of things not seen. And we can't please God without faith. There has to be that faith. It's that faith. It's that believing in the unseen realm, believing in what God has said. But your faith needs patience to inherit everything God needs. So I've said for years, it's not a one-legged race. Yeah. And a lot of people just like faith, but they haven't developed the muscle, the maturity of patience, that I'm in this for the long haul. So if I'm waiting for a long duration of time, but it's faith and patience is what inherits the promises of God. And that's how Abraham obtained it. That's how Noah obtained it. I mean, Noah building an ark for 80 to 100 years and nothing happening. That to me speaks of character. That's the most insane character there is in the Bible. Noah is taking a hammer to a nail, so does figuratively, for 100 years and nothing's changed. I mean, we struggle doing that for like 2 weeks. We just don't have that. But Noah was a man of faith, but what was he? He's a man of patience. And there's this longevity to it. There's just day in and day out. And then he gets to the point where what he built was for the salvation of his family. But we got to we read the Bible too, like chapter and verse and line by line. There could be 10, 15, 20 years in that stuff that, let's face it. I mean, David's anointed. He doesn't enter into that thing. Joseph's got a dream. He walks through, 16 plus years of this stuff. Abraham hears from God, you'll have a child 25 years later. So there's patience is so needed to God's fullness of his plan to unfold in our life, that a lot of people start out in faith. God. But there's this just steadiness of just...
And the encouraging thing is that it's not patience through isolation, it's patience through communion with him, meaning that the whole goal of Christ and us is to bridge and to build a relationship with us. So you're in seasons of patience, but you're not alone. You're with him. And coming alive to the reality that there's nothing more fulfilling than being with him. You could wait all you want and you'll be okay. Your dream could take 40 years to manifest and you'll be okay, because you realize that God promises to never leave us or forsake us. So in that patient waiting, we're just communing with him. Now, if you don't possess that reality and you think you're alone, it's like, yeah, I'm in a jail cell. I'm all alone. There's Lord, I'm begging for this. And it's like, where are you? The only experience that I've had to ministry was doing something for you. And it's like, maybe God is trying to withhold some things from us so that we can realize that beyond ministry, what I do for the Lord, first comes the ministry of being with the Lord. And it's like that to me, I feel like I have to work on that too.
Mm-hmm.
Of like, maybe I need to learn to find the fulfillment of just being alone with him and communing with him and coming alive to the reality that like, that's what he prioritizes first. So why should I shrug that off? Why should I? Okay, yeah, if I get to it. But as long as I do something great for God, like that's what gets my heart going. But it's like, that's not what even gets God's heart going.
Right. Very good.
So I think, yeah, it's a lot easier to be patient when you realize that you're not alone,
mm-hmm.
and that he's right there with you.
Mm-hmm.
And he's building you up. He's pouring in. And I think most of us are trying to operate on empty. And it's like, do you want to come out guns blazing and do something great that doesn't last? Or do you want to do something where at the end of your life you can say, man, I was faithful to the end? And the only way that you're going to get there is if you have something within you mm-hmm. that he gives you, that he departs in you, and he fills your cup up. And man, I think some of us out here, we're operating on empty, and it's messing some things up mm-hmm. inside of us, because we weren't designed to go that fast, to go that far without anything in us.
That's right.
And the Lord wants to just fulfill that within us. He wants to deposit that in us. And I think that he's so patient to let us, like, as much as he's calling us to be patient, imagine his patience towards us. That's crazy.
It says that in the word, Isaiah 30, the Lord will wait.
Yeah.
That he may be gracious to us.
Yeah.
What? Yeah. Yeah. I would put the entirety of my ministry life, anything I've accomplished, and say this statement as the absolute truth. He is the reward. Nothing else. It's not a stage, a place, if we never find that he's the reward, we're in a never-ending search, and wearisome is constant. But when you find out I already have the reward, everything else, like, he's the reward.
Everything's extra.
He is the reward of my faith.
Yeah.
Knowing him, he's the reward. And that's like it, man. I mean, because he's the fulfillment. He's what sustains. And it's like there's nothing you'll do for him or accomplish for him that will ever supersede the fact that you know him and he knows you, and you have a vibrant walking relationship with him, and that's it. Like, he's the pinnacle. There's nowhere else to climb.
Yeah.
He's behind every search is Jesus.
Yeah.
And it's not anything else in success or accomplishing, or he's the reward.
Yeah. It's like there's no wonder why these guys were able to do what God's called them to do through adversity, through seasons of barrenness, through where anybody would realistically give up. Like they understood. They had come to the conclusion exactly what you said. That the goal, the reward is just to be with him.
That's it.
So I don't care if it takes 80 years to fulfill what God's called me to do. I'm not striving. I'm not waiting for that to feel something. That can come whenever it wants. And God can do that whenever and however it wants. But it's the reality that I already have everything that I need with him. So would you boldly say that maybe weariness would not even exist in our lives if we just came alive to that conclusion? Because like, how could you grow weary if you understood that being with the Lord is everything that you need?
Yeah, throughout my ministry or my tenure here walking with the Lord, I've had a cataclysmic change and transition in me where I just came to the conclusion, it's through just maturity, but like dreams, aspirations, visions, all that it's great. God gives it to you. I'm not diminishing anything. We're all about it, but that's not the fulfillment. That's not what this is about.
No.
I'm not striving. I'm not in search of this like endless fulfillment. It's him. And knowing him and searching him and being a part of his plan and letting God sovereignly dictate the things of my life and being okay with whatever season I'm in. What did Paul say? The key to it all is contentment. Whether I have it or don't have it, I've learned the key to it all, contentment. I abase and I abound. So there is a severe striving in the world, especially in the church. It's like corporate America. We're competing with every other church. We're having to be this, we're having to do this better. And it's so empty.
Yeah.
Instead of just like settling in and just enjoying the journey and letting God use you and be distinct and trusting what he's given you and loving it and celebrating everybody else because that's amazing and that's amazing and wow, you got a breath there. And then just like, man, then it just is so much better and so much sweeter. And for me, it was a big thing that I think the Spirit of God had to do in me. And not that I've ever, and you guys know this as I've led, I'm not leading that way, but still within you, you're like, there's this, you're like always unhappy because you're not there yet. We're like, where's there? What if God says this is there? What if where you are today, God says today, this is there? Well, it doesn't. This is there. And you miss there because you're searching for something else all the time. Man, it's like, I've been missing this whole thing. Like, I'm just going to settle in here. And God will get me there, right? Or I will. And if I get me there, I gotta take care of it there, provide for me there. But if God gets me there, and I love there. So, there's just this thing about like being present, our daily bread. He's the reward. Michael Jordan, I think, let the game come to you. Let things come to you in a sense. And I'm not diminishing seek, ask, and knock. I'm not diminishing Luke 18, our persistent prayer. I'm not diminishing asking God for more. I'm not saying that.
Yeah.
I'm just saying there's a place in God that says I'm fully content in what's not and what is, because I know him, I have his eternal salvation, and he's sovereignly leading my life. And if he says it's good, Adam and Eve, it's good. You know where they missed it? God said it's good. It's good.
And they questioned it.
And they didn't think it was good, and they were searching for something else. If God says it's good, baby, it's good.
Yeah.
But we all say, no, it's not good because I don't have a child yet. Or it's not good because I don't have 5 kids. Or it's not good because I don't have a Lamborghini. No, it's good.
Yeah. Wow.
Well, it's not good because I'm not known. No. If God says, I'll never forget that one day at a rental house. I hate to say it. I was in the restroom reading my Bible. That's too graphic. I'm sorry. And the Spirit of God, I said, I need to hear from you, Lord. And this is all he said. It's good. And I had so many problems in that season. Like I was like, and he said, it's good. When God says it's good, it's good.
And like we're not saying like lock yourself in a room and don't be used by God. I think it's all a heart posture. But because if you think about it, it's like we all have to have the hard conversation with ourselves of what is the why behind what we're doing? What's the why?
Beautiful.
How's my heart in this? And if God called us to first be worshipers of him, we have to understand that the life of a worshiper is absolutely fine with obscurity, of being unknown, of being unimportant, of being not seen. So if you are okay with that, then you're good. Go do whatever you want for the Lord, because he can trust you. Because it's all worship, right? We're either doing this for God or we're doing it for ourselves. And if you don't have that reality, you are building and you're crafting a life so that in the end, you will be worshiped. You will be famous. You will be celebrated. Oh my gosh, all that you did. Wow, look at you on that big stage. Look at you. Look at all that you did. Look at all that. We're building a life towards worship, whether we know it or not. And how demonic, how backwards to do something for God to still get the worship and the praise for ourselves.
Jesus. Sounds a lot like Lucifer. So true. That's a heavy point.
So that just like terrifies me.
That's
like, God, I pray that I'm not doing that.
Yeah, that's a big thing.
Like sit me down. Like just press pause on all of this.
That's a great checks and balance to live with. That's a holy awe to live with.
Yeah.
Do I want this for me?
Because I think some of the people that do the biggest things for God, they don't even want it.
Yeah.
They could care less.
I have got, and I've told you, you guys know this. I've gotten to the point where like all that stuff is so worked out of you, it doesn't even move you anymore. I don't even know if I want it. You do, and I don't have. That is the process I think God takes you through. He gives you the dream, and then he beats it into such a place that you don't even know if you want it, and then he does it for him, and it's his. That's his. Yeah. He's very, very strategic that way. That's a great thing you said. Do I want to be worshipped? That's sacred ground. Like you really gotta question yourself, and you gotta question other people if they want it that bad. If it moves them that bad, it's like, why? And yourself, why do you want that so bad? Would you be okay if you didn't have it? What if you woke up, went to your mailbox, got this amazing letter that said, you will never have it. How do you feel? Would you still love and serve Jesus? Would your joy still remain the same? It's beautiful. And I'm not saying that like we have that all figured out, because I think that people are listening and they're like, well, am I an evil person for wanting to do something great for God? And it's like, no, like we should want to spread the good word and bring people to heaven and live a life that points people to Jesus. But help our hearts, Lord, not fall in love with the praise or the feeling of importance of doing something for him, and let that not replace what he says about us and the affirmation that he gives us. Beautiful. Beautiful. A lot of great stuff. So the conclusion of the matter is, let us not grow weary. Doing good. For in due season we will reap if we don't faint. Amen. That was great. Faithful Father. Amen. Thank you guys for listening. Hopefully you liked it. Hopefully it spoke to you. Hopefully it challenged you. We love you guys. We don't know you. Maybe we've never met you, but we're praying that anybody listening to this would just walk out a great life with God. So we'll see you guys next time.